Welcome back once again to this channel. Which language should I speak? This is the poem. Actually, this poem contains with only two stanzas. It is quite easy poem. If you go through the entire poem, you will have a clear idea what is there in the poem. But before going into the poem, you need to understand what is Dalit and what kind of Dalit oppressions they face in the hand of the upper class community. Simply, we may put that the Dalit are those community who face all kind of discrimination in their social life, and this type of oppression or castigation comes on them from the upper class community. And not only the upper class community, rather sometimes we have seen that the Dalit community too also dominate the another community. So simple way, here we may call that the Dalit are leading a miserable life. Here the poet is raising the question, which language should I speak? And this is the question that he actually asked to wreck the cultural hegemony of the Dalit community. Because to live with the mainstream community life or mainstream upper class community life, or to live a normal life, you must have to contact with the upper class community. It is not that only Dalit can have a seclusion and they can live their life in seclusion and no one will intrude in their life. It is not that. The real fact is that they need to communicate with the other community, they need to also take help of the other community. So this is a vice versa process where we see that all the communities, maybe Dalit community, maybe the upper class community, the Brahmin community, they always intermingle with each other for their own benefit. But here Arun Kumble, who is also a social activist, clearly asked that he is now in a dwindling situation. Which one to take, which path he is to take? This is the question that he is clearly asking here. So now let's begin and try to have an understanding of this poem. Which language should I speak? Chewing tatters in the Badland, my grandpa, the permanent resident of my body, the household of tradition heaped on his back, hollers at me, you whoreson, talk like we do, talk I tell you. The very first line is clearly tell us that this is the place where the land is arid. No kind of fertile land you will find for cultivation. So the Dalit community are living in a ghetto or in some barren island. And within this barren island there is a grandpa. Grandpa usually means the pradhan or the main or the chief of a village. So here the community is clearly asserting that they are under control of a grandpa. Here this situation will be quite an easy one if we go through the poem. So the first line tells us that chewing tatters in the Badland. That means that the grandpa is chewing bitterly, probably. So therefore, in his mouth there is something which is now chewing, and he is now in an infertile land. And who is this man? He is the grandpa. So he is the grandpa of the speaker, the permanent resident of my body. Here the author had just played a trick to make us clearly understand the relationship between the grandpa and his grandson, the speaker himself also. The speaker feels that within his vein, he feels the cultural value that his father also carried, that his even grandfather is also carrying. Like it means that so whatever the cultural value they actually imbibe in them, this grandson needs to carry them. So therefore it is telling us a process of inheritance. Whatever cultural value, whatever moral value those community are carrying with them, the narrator needs to carry the same value because they are living in a community, and it is their own duty to preserve their moral value, to preserve their cultural value. So therefore they don't want to commingle with each other, and the grandfather is therefore transcending all those value to his grandson. And that's why the narrator is telling that the permanent resident of my body. No one can be a permanent resident of my body. and it is quite a metaphorical. Sometimes we often say the cancer has taken a permanent place in my body. Like means that this disease cancer is incurable and it will be in my body so long I live. Similarly, here the cancer is just controlling the body, but what here I am just telling here that the permanent resident of my body, that means that the grandpa is also controlling the entire community. He not only maintains the rules and regulations of the entire community, rather he also directs the people what to do, what not to do, etc. The household of tradition heaped on his back. And this line is clearly telling that this grandpa has a responsibility and he maintains the entire community. Here, the household of tradition heaped on his back. That means that the entire responsibility are on his back, on his shoulder, and he maintains the entire group, entire Dalit community, what to do and when to do, or he also decree some of the regulations so that the common people live within their ethnic group. They don't come out, they don't go out from their place. Hollers at me, and then this person, this grandson, says something in a dry voice, in a gruff voice. You son, talk like we do. Talk, I tell you. Here the situation is that whenever the grandfather is addressing his grandson, surely there was some conversation, there was some interchange between them. And as a result, the grandfather is telling something to his grandson. So the situation may be like that. The grandson has spoken something to the grandfather and the grandfather cannot understand. And that's why this grandfather is telling the grandson, you son, talk like we do. Just he's addressing in a menial term, son. Hord means prostitute. That means that the grandson is the son of prostitute. It is a term of demeaning, a term of upbraid, a term of railing. So that's why this grandfather is just upbraiding his grandson, telling something, just trying to malign his own status, just malign his own status. He tells that talk like we do. So the grandfather is telling that you must talk, you must have the articulation, you must have the pronunciation, you must have the language, how we delineate to each other, how we communicate with each other. I tell you, just I am telling you as the chief of this community, as the grandpa of this community, I am just ordering you to tell or to use those language which I am now using. So this is the first stanza. Here you can understand that here the situation is very much green. Here the grandfather is telling clearly. In fact, he is just ordering his grandson to maintain the rules and regulations of this community. He does not allow any kind of intruder to come into their community, even in the form of language. Here you will find in the second stanza that the narrator is just beginning his almost all the sentences in a small letter, whereas in the first case, in the first stanza, you will find that there the narrator has used capital letter at the beginning of each line. Here the beginning with the small letter is indication of the fact that the narrator himself is in disgust against the situation, against the theme that is there. Here probably his most abject element has been described, so therefore the poet has a certain kind of apathy towards the situation. Here we will find that the teacher is a Brahmin and he is just also ordering, just like the grandfather, that he should speak the language that is common, that almost all the community, almost all the upper class community are using. So what is there? Let's see. Peeking through the Vedas, his top note well welled with ghee. My Brahmin teacher tells me, you idiot, use the language correctly. May I ask you, which language should I speak? Now this last line is quite crucial one. I will explain to you in the latter part. Just come through the beginning. Peeking through the Vedas. That means that here the teacher who has in his hand the religious scripture, the Veda. Because earlier we have seen that there was no school where only modern education was given. So it is a religious education, and almost all the Brahmin were considered quite religious, and they are given the dignity of a teacher. And we have seen that in many told or in many places only Brahmins come to teach to their disciple, to their students. So here we find that the Brahmin is a teacher, and he is carrying in his hand the religious scripture, that is Veda, and his top knot means the top of the hair which are tied together, and the hair is oiled with ghee. That means that the hair is quite shiny, and it is also a religious practice. Sometimes we often see in our Bengali, that is called a mundon. So whenever there is no kind of hair except the top part of your head, and then Brahmin teacher tells me, "You idiot, use the language correctly." The situation is same here. Probably the narrator also interacted with the Brahmin, and after hearing something from the narrator, the Brahmin is not able to understand what is there. So therefore he asked the student, "You idiot, use the language correctly." It means that he is also ordering the student to use the language correctly, because he is probably talking with the Brahmin in the language which his grandson has also ordered him to do so. He is just telling the student that you must shun out your vernacular language, your own language that is prevalent in your community. Rather, speak the language which we are now teaching you, because you are in a school, because you are in a place where the Brahmin students come to learn. Now I ask you, which language should I speak? Now in such a situation, I, the speaker, is asking to audience that which language should I speak, which language the speaker will think, which language the speaker will speak. So this is the summary, and hope you have understood. If you like this poem, just have a subscription of this channel and share with your friends. Thank you.